That phase 3 would include the demolition of the existing roadway up through there, the demolition of the parking lots, rerouting some storm sewer. We would then construct a kayak launch, a fish pier, some new electrical services down there for new walk lights. Any of the railings we put in, just like on the east side, we put low voltage lighting in those. It's a huge cost savings, obviously, with utilities and things like that, and it still provides our customers and our residents with a safe environment during the evening hours. Phase 3 would also include the 12-foot wide walk under Washington Street. We'd also have a 5-foot wide walk up the west side of the new parking lots down there. The 2 parking lots that are down there right now would be redone. The 2 parking lots right along the river would be redone. The north parking lot would be city-owned. The southern parking lot along the river would be privately owned. But that's all part of the agreements in the construction of this area of the project. Just checking my notes here. Again, with the phase 3 project, when our contractor is done, our park staff would be in there. We would do all the final grading, planting, et cetera, if everything goes as planned and we have like the greatest weather ever in the world, phase 3, we would look at like 2022. So again, phase 1 this year, phase 2 next year, phase 3, 2022. The estimated cost of phase 3 is just over $2 million. So in those cost estimates for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, the 3 cost estimates come to about $5.9 million. In those cost estimates are the 18% contingency that's included. Also, the construction management fees are included in those cost estimates. Design and engineering of the project has already been paid for. Also, in those 3 cost estimates are the estimated disposal removal costs of any contaminated soils that we know we will find along the river. We've done a lot of pre-planning, soil testing, borings, et cetera. We know we are going to have some contaminated soil issues in these areas. Until we get started, we don't know exactly what we're going to be faced with. So right now, phase 2, or phase 1, 2, and 3, we're looking at approximately $5.9 million. Existing funding at this point in time, our existing funding includes several very impressive community donations. Several of these are the West Bend Mutual Charitable Fund for $500,000, the Redevelopment Authority for $471,000, the Bid District Downtown, $125,000, West Bend Economic Corporation, $250,000, a Community Block Development Grant for $137,000, Fund for Lake Michigan grant for $100,000, a DNR acquisition grant, $121,000. Now those are all funding sources that we do already have, and we are hoping or anticipating to have TIF funding of around $900,000 for this project. So if we get the TID funding, we would be right now $2.6 million of existing funds for this project. We continue applying for additional grant money. We have already applied for a DOT transportation grant in the amount of $1.6 million. We will not have, and that would be a 20% city match of about $450,000. We will not hear the awards on those grants until July or August of 2020. We are also in the process of applying for another stewardship grant through the DNR. We are looking at applying for $1.3 million for the stewardship grant, which is half the cost of phase 2. The DNR has already told us that we will most likely not see $1.3 million. Or last year, their last go around for their grants at DNR said they did hand out some grant numbers or amounts of $500,000 and $750,000. So again, for the stewardship grant, we will not have those answers until sometime in 2021. Our project's going to score really high in some of these grant applications, but again, we are not the only community out there looking for these funding sources. We also have some brownfield cleanup grants that will be available to us. We don't know the dollar amounts for those. until we know exactly the type and quantity and cost of the contaminated materials that we remove from this Riverwalk section. And we are also still applying for a fund for Lake Michigan grant to cover some of the green infrastructure items down there along the Riverwalk, some of the pervious pavers and things like that. So lots of information. So a little bit of recap is tonight we are requesting to proceed with the development of the Riverwalk West project. We get the go-ahead this evening for phase 1. Then in June of 2020, we will remove the existing Riverwalk, execute the installation of the new utilities for approximately $1.2, $1.3 million. After phase 1 is completed, the Riverwalk will remain closed until phase 2 is constructed. We anticipate bidding phase 2 in September 2020. I know we just provided you with a lot of information and a very busy schedule, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Hey, Mike, Justice here. Just because we give you go-ahead tonight doesn't mean if we've got some, not unforeseen, some obvious issues with budget or perhaps grants dry up because of our current situation, we can always slow things down or put a halt in the future, correct?
Great question. So right now, if we get the permission to proceed tonight, in June, we are going to go ahead and we are going to remove the Riverwalk from Veterans Avenue to the North Pedestrian Bridge. That walk will come out. It'll be dirt. It'll be gravel. We'll make it fire safe for back doors and things like that. But the Riverwalk will come out, and then we would go ahead with the utility contractors. We Energy's chartered AT&T. That would be our phase 1. So if at some point in time we don't have funding or something like that, if we do phase 1 and we don't want to do phase 2 or 3, we will not have a Riverwalk downtown. If we would do phase 1 and 2, we would have the utilities done, and the Riverwalk would be new from Veterans Avenue north and the North Pedestrian Bridge. So like phase 3, Justice, I'll say like the parking lots and things like that up on the north end, could we delay that by a year or 2? Yeah, we probably could. And again, the DOT grant that we applied for, I wish we had better timelines for everything, but that's not how things are working out. The DOT grant can go towards the reconstruction of those parking lots. So as things progress over the next year or 2, we would have better answers for you. But again, to answer your question, if we go ahead with phase 1, we could stop after phase 1. We would have no Riverwalk on the west side. If we go with phase 1 and 2, then at least we'd have the new utilities and a Riverwalk from Veterans Avenue north to the north. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Sure, but don't get me wrong. The last thing I want is for this project to stop. But I'm just getting into what degree of commitment we're making right now.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. We don't have funding for the entire project. We don't have grant applications. That's concerning. Obviously, it's a huge project. It's a big project. It's a big project. Make a difference in West Bend. No, it was a great question. Great question.
Mike, you do have, though, the $2.6 million kind of already set aside, which is about 44% of the budget. Is that right? Of the $5.9 million in total?
Yes, $2.6 million. If that comes to 44%, then you're spot on.
Okay. So almost halfway there.
Right.
And 3 years to go?
Well, phase 1 is this year.
Right.
Phase 2, again, if we don't want to do phase 2, we live without a Riverwalk downtown. It kind of look a little bit like a war zone, I guess. Everything's going to be ripped up like a construction site.
How long?
I'm sorry, what?
How long did it take you guys to raise the $2.6 million to get about 44% of the way there? How long have you guys been working on that?
This has been ongoing for several years. So the east side of the river was about $2.2 million. And some of the funding sources, the donations and things like that, they basically went towards Riverwalk redevelopment, maybe the east side or the west side. So exactly a timeline on, as far as fundraising for the west side, I be honest with you, Megan, I don't have a specific timeline. It's kind of, the Riverwalk is a Riverwalk. Some people look at it as phase 1 is done, and that's the east side. and the west side is phase 2, and when they financially supported this project, they supported both sides.
Hey, Mike, can you talk a little bit about the 18% contingency? We've been trying to get, 3 to 5, maybe tops of 7% contingencies going. 18 is pretty far out of that. It almost comes to $1 million.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Great question. 18% is because that's what we used on the east side of the Riverwalk, or the east side of the river when we did that project. We basically used every ounce or every dollar that 18%. Again, with this Riverwalk project on the west side, we have a lot of different variables we don't know about. There's a lot of private utilities coming out of buildings that we don't know about yet. We've been in some of the basements, trying to figure out where sump pumps run and floor drains run and things like that. We don't know exactly what the contamination levels are of soils. So 18%, Rich, I completely agree. That is a little higher than what we normally go with. But with the uncertainties that we are looking at here, that's why, and the history of what we had on the east side, that's why we chose that 18% number for the west side. And again, even for the utilities, the We Energies, AT&T, and Charter, they gave us their written quotes and all that. Mm-hmm. We're hoping some of those numbers can go down. Or even during the construction on phase 2, we got 18% contingency. We're hoping we don't need that. We're hoping maybe the contaminated soils are not going to be that bad. Mm-hmm. We're hoping maybe construction bidding will go well for us. We're hoping that we can bid this out in September of this year for June construction of next year. We're hoping, so we're trying to plan ahead with as much as we can, hoping that the contractors that maybe get some of this work, we don't use that 18%. Right. Hopefully we use none of it, or we use 5% or 7% of it. Right. It's kind of the worst case scenario with the tight location we're working in, the steel sheeting we got to put in, contaminated soils, utilities, etc.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Can I make the motion to approve?
Mike? Quick question. Have we looked at what, if any, impacts we might have to the schedule based on whether this falls into the essential work and possible COVID-19 interruptions to schedule?
That's a great question, because my next topic, the COVID-19, does impact that schedule. For this project, it would not impact the COVID-19 order as it sits right now, would not impact this project because of the utility work that's happening.
And Mark, I would agree with that statement. This is utility work, not recreational work in this phase, so it's not affected by the COVID order.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve?
I would second Justice's motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Alderman Goodchuck. Alderman Adelin.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Jenkins.
Aye.
Alderman Castor.
Aye.
Alderman Hoover.
Aye.
Alderman Mott.
Aye.
Alderman Kennedy.
Aye.